Cosmic Armor Superman versus Son Goku. Hello everyone, today we're going to be talking about whether Goku can beat Cosmic Armor Superman. This will also be relevant to whether or not Goku can in fact solve the DC verse, as well as addressing multiple misconceptions about the DC cosmology and addressing things about Dragon Ball as well. When it comes to DC, you have to be really careful taking statements about the cosmology, so let's start with the base multiverse. It straight up is described as an infinite multiverse. There's nothing really contentious with that. Straight up described here as having infinite dimensions, straight up just there. And yes, dimensions within this context actually refers to universes, as is described multiple times in DC, where they verbatim describe the word dimension as a universe multiple times just right there, so it would be disingenuous to say it's some sort of high hyperversal construct. but it's different, the words are separated. It's a common way in fiction to describe an infinite multiverse by putting two definitions of the same thing together. This is not 11D. First of all, it says it's theoretical, which means it's not even objectively true, and it's talking about universe being layered well beyond the 11 known dimensions. Layers don't specify any dimensional transcendence, and then it says it's talking about a multiverse when it says the word universe within the same scan, which means the word universe represents multiverse within that context, and it's talking about them just being aware of 11 universes and then later on being aware of more, or having the idea of the existence of more. Another thing that backs it up being just universes, it is shows and depict multiple Earths beside each other, which is a common way in fiction to describe multiple parallel worlds or universes in an artistic sense. So yeah, it would just be an equivocation fallacy to say, oh, 11 dimensions, or it must mean string theory. I don't know, DC always fucks themselves when it comes to higher dimensions, bro. Like, this scan also talks about it being a theoretical snowflake existing in whatever dimensional space. And the problem is it's not the same as other verses where the 10th dimension can contain an infinite subset of the 9th dimension. It's not referring to infinitely transcendent spatial complexity, but rather a dimensional shape. The dimensions of the multiverse are described as vibrational realms, which is an indication that they follow M theory to some extent. Universes in DC are straight up described as vibrational realms with frequencies, which is an aspect or a quality of their dimensionality and their dimensional properties, etc. They are also described as being within the all-enclosing bulk known as bleed space, which is a fourth dimensional space for it to be able to enclose the multiverse. And it's also described as some kind of higher dimensional fluid medium, but that easily gets debunked by the Bunny Man, stating that it's rotating throughout the fifth dimension, so it's literally not fifth dimensional itself. So it actually gets contradicted, by the way. It's just described as pan-dimensional within one of the comic, which is an indication that it contains an infinite multiverse. In context of it being pan-dimensional, the context is that it contains all dimensions, in which in DC, dimensions are described as universes, so it would be disingenuous to say that it's talking about high hyperversal. This scan doesn't mean that Wonderworld is where space-time inherently stops. It's just talking about in context to his perspective. This is where he is aware of the limit of space-time. He is not aware of anything beyond it, which is why it's referenced as unknown in context to his perspective. And it's also described as something that orbits creation, so it's not an infinitely transcendent realm or anything. It's kind of like the Kaioshin realm from Dragon Ball. Notice how they're all vibrating at the same frequency, which would imply they're all fourth dimensional like the universes themselves. The God Sphere is straight up described as a world of higher vibrations, which, following consistency with what we've established about dimensions in DC, it would just be a higher dimension since it's a world of higher dimensional properties or higher vibrational frequencies. There's also a scan of the God Sphere being stated to be like transgeometric or some shit, but trans just means higher. So it doesn't mean it's some kind of infinite dimensional construct or something. So it's just in context of it being a higher geometrical coordinate within the multiverse, not that it's an infinite dimensional construct. It's straight up described as beyond space and time in context of fourth dimensional space and time. Also supported with this scan where Mr. Mixie literally explains how it exists outside of just fourth dimensional space and time in this comic. Mr. Mixie also explains that the first dimension is a point, which is mathematically correct, as zero-dimensional is not a point. Zero-dimensional is the absence of dimensions. He then talks about the third, etc., and the fourth dimension being time, etc. So you know when he's talking about the fifth dimension, he's literally talking about a dimensional construct. Another thing that supports this is the fact that the God Sphere is placed under the category of things that are considered spatial constructs, as well as hypertime being placed under the category of things that are considered temporal in nature or time aspects. Funny how this scan debunks every hyperversal meta about the God Sphere. Heaven is a part of the God Sphere, and obviously heaven contains time, as in this scan it's shown that time is being manipulated in heaven. When they talk about 5D, they're actually referring to actual 5D. Don't use this scan to try and scale the God Sphere to hyperversal, because Platonism literally scales absolutely nowhere. So I'm not gonna be debunking Platonism myself in this video. However, I'll just leave the debunks out for you guys. So here are the debunks to Platonism. You can pause them and read, because if I explained it in this video, it would make it extra long, and I don't want to waste your time. So now that we've established that Platonism is completely useless, let's move on to some other things that could debunk the DC cosmology. Vertigo isn't really canon to DC, but even so, the guy literally mentions sleep as a concept right next to dimension, which really goes to show that it's not referring to an abstraction, but rather a mental idea or notion. It's not referring to an abstract concept that governs reality. I explained in one of my videos why the word concept doesn't scale you every time. You can go ahead and watch that video. The monitor sphere would just easily be a higher dimension than the God Sphere. We would just put it as 6-dimensional easily, just right there. Also supported by the fact that it has a higher frequency, or it vibrates at a higher frequency, which supports it being higher dimensional. And yes, it does have time, it's not hyperversal. So another thing that supports it being a higher dimension is the fact that Cosmic Armor Superman can literally perceive limbo as 2-dimensional. Mind you, limbo is implied to be on the same dimensional frequency vibration as the God Sphere itself, which would easily just back it up being a higher dimension than the God Sphere. So the monitor sphere would be around 6-dimensional. Now let's talk about where this annoying Satan's wife looking fat bitch lives. Nothing's actually supposed to be beyond the source wall, as it's supposed to be the limit of everything, but we get some confirmation in some later comic issues that it's not the case at all, and there is in fact something beyond the source. Literally stated right here that Perpetua is beyond the source wall. Perpetua is from a species known as the Hands. The Hands are so powerful they can imprison even her. Considering the fact that she can casually create multiverses, that goes to show you how just broken the Hands are themselves. She's the mother of the World Forger, the Monitor, and the Anti-Monitor. She resides in a place known as the 6th Dimension, and considering the fact that this place already transcends the Monitor Sphere, which obviously transcends the 5th-dimensional God Sphere, it would mean that the Monitor Sphere being 6th-dimensional and this realm being transcended in context to it and also being called 6th-dimensional would mean that it's referring to its spatial dimensions and one temporal, which would make it a 7-dimensional place. What supports it being having one temporal apart from its 6 spatial dimensions is the fact that time is being recorded there as it's dated 20 billion years, so time is obviously a separate thing from its spatial coordinates, so it would be 7th dimensional and not just 6th dimensional. Another thing that supports it being in fact 7th dimensional and not just 6th dimensional is the fact that it's called the 6th plane of existence, which again, as I established, it goes in consistency with what we've already discussed. So that would end up making the cosmology complex multiversal, and this isn't the end, but I just wanted to address something. This wouldn't make Perpetua complex multiversal or 7th dimensional, because just because you exist in a 7th dimensional realm doesn't mean you inherently scale to the entirety of it, just as because we humans exist in the universe doesn't mean we have infinite like 3D power or something like that. So you have to be able to display the power to be able to destroy the entirety of the 7th dimensional realm. Otherwise, you would just have a 7th dimensional existence, and automatically you would have like 6th dimensional power or infinite 6th dimensional power, etc. So she's not complex multiversal, she's just low complex 6D power. It goes in consistency with the fact that she can create the multiverse, etc. So she would just be 6D. The white void you see outside the map is the overvoid, and since it transcends a 7th dimensional cosmology, it would easily make the overvoid 8th dimensional. Now we're gonna be highballing the shit out of Cosmic Armor Superman and saying he scales to the entire cosmology, which obviously isn't true. We're just gonna be highballing him for the sake of this video and saying he's 8th dimensional, which is complex multiversal. And given the fact that he scales above realms that transcend all of time, like the God's Fair, etc., it would easily grant him immeasurable speed to a really good extent. So he's around complex multiversal with immeasurable speed. But given the fact that Cosmic Armor Superman was defeated by the concept of Brussels sprouts, and he is also susceptible to being spanked by Daddy, and we all know Goku is Daddy, so Goku would easily clap Cosmic Armor Superman. Just joking. Let's get into Goku scaling. Now, I've covered Goku scaling multiple times on this channel, but however, for the sake of the newcomers, let's just go over why Goku is absolutely broken. I'm going to be very briefly scaling Goku to hyperversal. The RPG guidebook is canon, gets its information from anime and manga. It tells you to leave your Western conceptions of heaven and hell away, and you better just, come into the line of reason where everything is not based on science. It tells you that to understand Dragon Ball's cosmology, you have to go beyond just reading the anime and the manga, and those will not tell you all you need to know about the cosmology. Dragon Ball is based off of Buddhism and Asian mythologies like Journey to the West, pretty clear. The other world is an enlightened place, which we know in Asian mythology and Buddhism. When you achieve nirvana, you're basically in a state of enlightenment in which you transcend all concepts and limitations. The Dragon Ball Super Exciting Guidebook, it's stated here in this scan talking about Super Saiyan 3 Goku that the afterlife has no concept of time. And it's obviously in reference to its spatial temporality being absent in the afterlife, which would just mean that it's not a dimensional construct at all. Just to mention why Super Saiyan 3 is very effective in the afterlife, because Super Saiyan 3 literally drains time, and in the afterlife where there is no time, you can use it indefinitely. Goku was allowed to keep his physical body while in the afterlife, and yet he didn't age a bit, showing that there is in fact no time in the afterlife. Here's the most accurate translation for the Daizenshu scan. It states that the afterlife transcends dimensionality. I got it from a Japanese individual named Shinji who lives directly in Japan. He's also helping us translate a couple of guides and shit, so his translation is way better than the machine guides and the fake afterlife translation I've been seeing going around from Twitter. Shinji literally explains why Herm's translation is trash. The afterlife is also disconnected from reality except on the most metaphysical level. Metaphysical being in context to metaphysics, and in case you don't know what metaphysics are, these are things that govern, they're abstract concepts that govern reality. Here are the definitions. The afterlife also has its own laws, that's why freaks of nature like this can exist without forming a contradiction. This is in context to the efficiency of King Kai's training, not that time actually exists there, as it's specified throughout the entire series that the afterlife has no time. King Kai and Goku are just talking about a personal knowledge of time from Earth they're using to quantify the actions for the reader to be able to understand, necessitating the existence of spatial temporal dimensions within the afterlife, which has been consistently described in multiple sources, both anime, manga, and multiple data books, as a place without time. And the thing is that time on Earth will continue to flow whether you're in the afterlife or not. There is no relation between the Earth and the afterlife. Just because time flows on Earth and it's being notified in the afterlife doesn't inherently make time flow in the afterlife as well. People try to argue that since there's gravity on King Kai's planet that the entire afterlife has space. this is just ignorance of the fact that the afterlife is stated multiple times to be without the concept of time, as well as many sources that imply it's an hyperversal place. Plus, in a place that is without the concept of time consistently and a place that has its own laws, I can literally just argue that it's artificial gravity being created by the Kais and not actual gravity, which is consistent and leaves room for no contradictions within the context that's being followed. The afterlife is also implied to be non-corporeal, which literally means it's not a physical place, so it's a spiritual place. If you try to argue that it's physical based on the animation, I have nothing to say to you apart from you're retarded. With all this being said, this easily puts Goku at hyperversal levels of strength with irrelevant speed, so if you think Superman stands any chance against this, you're just biased. Goku is going to beat the hell out of Superman, then solo the verse in base form while using one hand and closing his eyes. And I'm not even exaggerating, bro. Like, all Goku needs to do is fire a ki blast and all of DC is gone. If you disagree with me, you can debate me my Discord to be tagged in the comment section below. Anyways, thanks for watching, guys. Remember, Goku solos. A Marvel debunk is coming up soon, so do please subscribe, like the video, share, and it has been your boy Drip Sauce. Peace out.
I see it now. This day has made it all too clear. You're better than me, Kakarot.